Welcome, everyone, to the 2024 recap of Google Workspace. It's been a long year. We made it to the end, just about. No, in a couple days here, it'll be the end. With me today is longtime friend of the show, CEO and founder of Rise Digital, Christian Newman. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. It's been a long year. It's been a busy one.
Yeah. Congrats to everybody. We made it. Hopefully nobody killed any users that we know of.
Yeah, it's been a wild year. And really excited to get together with you today to kind of recap what went down and maybe make some predictions about where we're headed. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a massive update of a year, starting with everything they announced at Google Next, and I don't know about you, but I'm already planning my coverage for Google Next 2025, which is coming in 4 short months, or not even, because it's the middle of April.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was it seemed the next seemed so far away back in April after we wrapped it up. And it's almost here. I'm like thinking about planning my travel and things like that. And it's just amazing how fast things go by. And it feels to me like, the world just keeps getting faster and faster, and every year just blows by more quickly than the previous one. And this year is no different.
this year it felt worse, honestly. Normally I plan for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the year to be kind of, get organized and clean everything up and put everything away and strategize for the new year. And I am still trying to finish things up, and we're recording this on the 27th of December here. And it's like, all right, well, next week I'm going to do all of those things, and next week is January. So things are just still rolling out, and still, I mean, Google released, and we'll talk about more of this as we go on here, but Gemini 2.0 was essentially them just releasing a conference level amount of updates to the different AI tools, not all of them enterprise, unfortunately. But they did that just a couple of weeks ago, or a week or two ago. So definitely going to be an interesting year. And if that's what they announced on that side, just to throw it out at the end of the year, I can only imagine what they're going to be throwing into announcing at Google Next for all of the enterprise folks. So if you haven't registered for that, registration is open. I have to do my bit as a Google Cloud Champion Innovator and promote that. Come join us. We will be there, and I'll be recording and possibly even hosting some kind of a meetup. So stay tuned for that. Speaking of somebody who always ends up on stage and presenting to everybody, our fearless leader, second fearless leader, or more recent fearless leader, Aparna Papu, has announced that she is stepping down. If you didn't see my announcement on one of the episodes I did a little while back. So I'd like to start this by giving a salute and farewell to Aparna Papu, who is headed to another role inside of Google. Thank you, Aparna, for everything you've done and set in motion. Looking forward to 2025. It appears longtime Google exec Jerry Dishler has already taken over, and I'm sure we're going to see more of Jerry at Google Next this April. So Jerry, congrats.
Yeah, I'm always curious to see, what sort of direction the product will go in every time there's one of these sorts of changes. And it's amazing. Each leader brings a different philosophy or approach to the direction that the product goes and how it's communicated to clients. And definitely saw some of that with Aparna, and wish her all the best, and look forward to to Jerry's fresh ideas and new approach.
Yeah, my only request is stick around for a little while, please.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, enough with the forward-looking stuff. Let's go back in time through 2024. And if you haven't been paying attention at all this year, this is the video you want to watch. So buckle up. Here is our favorite features released to all of Google Workspace in the past year, 2024. The total number of updates is that the latest one, 341?
I just took a quick look because I realized that we were planning to do this video on a different day, and the last count that I had there was 323, but I just did a count, and we have 341 updates to Google Workspace in 2024, and there's actually a few more than that because all that's doing is counting the posts on the release notes, the Workspace
Mm-hmm.
updates blog. But every week they do a recap post, which includes a few little mini
Freebies.
updates, right? Which sometimes are awesome things, right? Like if I look at the one on December 20th, introducing instant video playback after uploads to Google Drive. You don't have to wait for a stone age for the video to finish processing before you can view it. That's awesome. And it's something
Thank
that a
God.
lot of people would love to see. But because it's in the recap post, it's not included in this count. So I don't know, what do we round 341 up to? Close to 400
350,
probably.
400.
There's
Yeah.
always one or two of those in each recap post, right? So
Yep. It
yeah,
depends
so
on the
close
week,
to
but yeah.
400 update.
Well, 341 official posts, and comparing that to last year, it was 325 and 22 was
Mm-hmm.
287. So your
Mm-hmm.
talk of it only accelerating, there's the numbers. It's
Yep.
a fact.
Yep. The proof is in the numbers.
Exactly.
And the fact that this year felt insane. Now we know why.
Yep.
And now we know that 2025 will be even crazier, right? Um,
Hopefully.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, really looking forward to recapping some of the biggest updates of the year with you, Jesse, and kind of comparing notes. And there's going to be some things that are on both of our lists. There's going to be some
Yep.
things that might be just on mine or just on yours. But yeah, really looking forward to doing that with you. But I think we would be out of touch if we didn't state that Gemini was the biggest thing in 2024. Like it seemed like Gemini was attached to everything, right? Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
it's everywhere this year, right?
Yep. Gemini
Um,
everything. And last year it was duet everything.
yeah, well, yeah, sort of. I mean, it was towards the end of the year. I guess it was
Yeah.
the next in San Francisco, which happened in August, September, something like that,
Yeah.
when they
Something like
first
that.
started rolling out Duet, and uh, it was limited when it
Mm-hmm.
first rolled out, right? Like it did a few neat things, but it didn't all come together, right? It did do a lot, and it didn't all come together, right?
Yep.
With Gemini in 2024, starting with Next in April, we started to see just this rapid, not only introduction of new capabilities, but also iteration of existing capabilities. And we saw it kind of right before our eyes because they introduced the ability for admins to switch on what did they call it, alpha features,
Mm-hmm.
so that users could benefit from some of these new capabilities as they were developed, right? And so I would be using Take Notes for me. That's one of the bright spots for Gemini that everybody loves,
Huge.
because nobody likes taking notes. And so I would be taking notes in meetings, and from a meeting one day to a meeting the next day, I would see marked improvements in the quality of those notes and the formatting of the document
Yep.
and everything with this alpha features turned on, because Google was watching and observing and measuring and listening to the feedback that was coming in. And it's a beautiful thing now. It just works so well. And that's just one example of the iteration that we've seen this year.
Yep. Well, at this past Google Next, the first one in Vegas, I was given a demo of that, of what they were, the latest updates to that. And it basically just was taking notes on the meeting that we were having in person. And I had been playing with it leading up to that as well. And I showed them some of the scripts, and it was still like it was getting there, but it was still very rough. And now I throw it on and it's just there in the background. It does it get everything? No. Does it have massive issues when there are multiple people behind a single camera? Yes. So if you have like a conference room full of people talking on one instance, it totally loses its mind and doesn't know what's what, which is to be expected, and Google will get there eventually. But to your point is, even since April, it's just been a complete transformation. So Yeah, big fan of that. But let's go in through, and we're already talking about Gemini, which is kind of all encompassing here. But the way that we should structure this is let's go through each individual category, so Gemini and then the various editors and whatnot. And we'll have Christian will go into, you'll go into some of yours, and the ones that I agree on, we can definitely discuss, and then I'll go through some of mine if you didn't mention them, and then we'll move on to the next category. So
Sure. All right. So
take notes
continue
from
Gemini.
me.
Yeah, take notes for me. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Like, when it first rolled out in the beta, it was kind of an exhaustive play-by-play of absolutely everything that was discussed.
Yep.
And the bullets were a mile long, and really didn't provide. I mean, yes, it was an accurate reflection for the most part of what was discussed during the meeting. But it wasn't really synthesized in a useful way, and now it is. And they attach the documents that were attached to the meeting, and all kinds of things have just improved so much, to the point where Take Notes for me is a reliable and well synthesized summary of each meeting, notwithstanding the challenges where everybody's sharing one microphone. How it's supposed to know who's talking at any given point? That'll be solved for, I'm sure, eventually. And it's, but it's a little bit of a corner case as far as the use cases for Take Notes for me on Google Meet, whereby most of the time everybody kind of has their own camera and their own microphone.
Right.
But it is definitely a valid request, and something that I'm sure will be improved. The other thing I had on my Gemini list is the side panel, right? Because the side panel, it kind of works everywhere, right? Like it's in chat, it's in Docs, it's in Drive, it's in Gmail, right? Like it's almost everywhere. It's not in Calendar yet. We'll get there maybe. But the side panel is that kind of chat-like experience where you can do a little bit of collaboration with Gemini. It's not like, help me write in Gmail, where it's like one request at a time that's, limited in its context to just the email conversation that you're looking at that exact moment,
right.
or even just the application that you're working on at that exact moment. But the side panel is that sort of omnipresent chat style collaborative type of interface where you can discuss and go back and forth with Gemini to pull on resources or context, not only from the application or the email conversation or the file or whatever it is that you're in the context of right now, but also reaching beyond that into the other parts of Google Workspace and the, multiple files and things like that, in order to produce content or make decisions or generate ideas or whatever success means to you. So that side panel is super, super powerful. And like I said, it's almost everywhere.
Yeah. No, it's been super helpful for me as well. I've only recently re-embraced it because I was on my main account using a lot of the labs testing and didn't have full Gemini license. And now I've added the full Gemini enterprise license, and it's like, oh, it can do this and that and all of the other things I was missing. So I'm relatively new to appreciating it, but it is, honestly, it has become very useful as an assistant on the side just to throw things at. And, a lot of times I'll just go straight into the app, gemini.google.com, because I find that very helpful. And sometimes more capable than the sidebar, but having it in the sidebar there and directly able to tap into what you're working on right there has been very useful for sure.
Yeah, there's, one of the, you kind of bring up a point around the Gemini app versus the sidebar. And then I guess we could say versus help me write or, help me organize or whatever the in-app experience is. And that's something that I spend a lot of time with users trying to educate them on, hey, what is the Gemini app best for? Like, when you have a problem that you need solved and you think Gemini can help you solve it, making that decision around what medium you decide to engage with Gemini on, right? Help me write or side panel, or Gemini app. That's kind of half the battle, right? Because they all do things a little bit different, and some do things better than others, and others, some do other things better than the other.
I wish they
So
didn't. I wish it was all one that
yeah,
synced together and you could access your side panel chats in the Gemini app and vice versa, but we'll get there.
yeah, exactly. Right. Like that's kind of where I hope that Google will take this, whereby just because I started a request with Help Me Write doesn't mean I cannot, click a button and then continue or kind of port it or move that request into the Gemini app or start in the Gemini app and then move it into the side panel or something like that and not have to kind of almost start from scratch, right? Like
Yep. Yeah.
in the Gemini app, you have persistence of your conversations and you can go back to previous conversations and continue them.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the main benefits of the Gemini app. Versus in like Help Me Write, like once you close that little bubble, it's gone, right? You're not
Yeah.
getting it back. Or the side panel, once you refresh the page or, close the side panel or whatever, you're kind of back to square one. And, making that experience a little bit more consistent and cohesive, I think would serve users greatly. And you raise another good point. You mentioned labs. I mentioned the alpha. One of the
Right.
things that, some of the things that we're talking about here would only really be available if, you had the alpha flag turned on in your admin console, for example, or were a
Right.
member of labs sometimes. So forgive us, everybody out there who's watching or listening.
Yeah.
If you're scratching your head saying, hey, where's this thing that Kristen and Jesse are talking about? That might be why you might have to enroll in labs, turn on the alpha flag or something like that.
Yep. I live on the bleeding edge of everything. So if you don't see it yet, it'll get there eventually. And if you're like FedRAMP, it might never get there, but probably eventually. Although they did just certify everything crazy, across the board for all the SOCs and all the FedRAMP and all that for certain things. But also, there was a point where I think it was like extensions. If you use extensions and you're using context-aware access, then you won't be able to use extensions, or extensions, the data used in extensions won't cover the context-aware access
Mhm.
terms. And it's like, uh-huh, that's
Yeah.
not helpful.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit confusing. And, one of the things around the compliance certifications that you were mentioning was I think if you use the Gemini app, then those interactions were not HIPAA compliant for a while. They are now.
Right.
But yeah, it gets, it's, this is important because, right, like people need to have confidence in the privacy or security of their interactions with Gemini. And, if they're building their Google Workspace to be compliant with HIPAA, and mold to their HIPAA compliant internal like human resources types of policies and things like that, then they need to have confidence that a new tool like Gemini also will not be a barrier to their compliance, basically, right?
Exactly.
And so there was a lot of time and energy and I'm sure money invested by Google in order to make sure that these certifications were achieved. And there's like 8 or 9 of them or something like that,
Yeah.
that rolled out over the past few months. And that's a big Gemini story as well. It's not just about, the end user functionality and, how consistent and cohesive is it from app to app to app, but how well does it support organizations in meeting their compliance objectives? That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so my Gemini favorites, in addition to yours, because also I do like yours, are Notebook LM, which is, well, Notebook LM Plus and LM for organizations, but Plus specifically has very recently become a daily driver. I'm in it constantly. It is incredibly useful as a repository of information that I can just query and just say, here's what I'm working on. So if I'm working on a project and instead of having a master document, I can have several documents, throw them all in Notebook LM, and then ask questions or prepare briefing documents, or even if I wanted to have fun with it, create an automated podcast on the information that's in there. And one of the things that they recently changed with Notebook LM is you were limited previously to 50 sources, and 50 sources is like, Okay, that sounds like a lot. But then you're thinking, all right, well, I want to put in 10 YouTube videos or 25 YouTube videos, all the content that I've made in the last, X weeks on that topic, whatever. And I want to have, 10 or 15 websites, and I want to have these different briefing docs that I've created and these different PDFs. And now you're basically there. And if you're going to do that over the course of a year on a project that you're working on that's a long haul, you're going to use that up. And so they've now blown that wide open, and the limit is 300 sources. And that's just good luck hitting that. Maybe over the course of a year, you'll get there. But by then, they'll probably have increased that limit on there. And then the other things is on that is that they are actively it's got to be their fastest developed and fastest in development project ever, because I'm seeing things that they are seeing as requests and implementing them days or weeks later and rolling them out. And
Uh-huh.
over on X, formerly known as Twitter, I'm still calling it Twitter, but whatever. They're actually listening and accepting requests, feature requests. So I said I want one of my sources to be RSS feeds, because I want to put the entire Workspace blog, all of the updates, automatically have it dump
Yeah.
directly into Notebook LM, so that I can say, hey, when was this feature released? What is this feature? What's the link for this feature? How do I, et cetera, et cetera. And the one of the VPs of the project basically was like, yeah, sure, added it to the roadmap, done. Like, I was like, that was easy. I wish all of my feature requests for everything Google went that easily and quickly. Google folks, if you're listening, please, that'd be great. But yeah, so if you're not using Notebook LM, the hype around it is insane. Much of it is true. A lot of it was on the consumer side. Spotify used Notebook LM to power their Wrapped podcast about your listening data, which is pretty cool. It was limited because it was only a couple of minutes. You can do a lot more with the actual Notebook LM, but I have been using it to help prepare for episodes like these, to help prepare project briefings, training guides, things like that. You just throw a ton of data at it, and you're able to pick and choose which sources it will synthesize that data from. So if you're like, I only want these 5 PDFs to be included in the responses, boom, done. It does it for you, easy peasy. So really, really awesome tool there. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight is that or my other favorite, I guess, is app.gemini.com becoming available properly for all users in Google Workspace organizations, even those who are not paying for it. Now, it's not the advanced version, and there was a lot of questions circling around about this, and it still may not be 100% totally clear, but the bottom line is basically they get access to essentially the consumer, the free model, but it's protected inside your organization with your data governance policies, and the model is not training on any of that information. And I think that's really important, both on number one, adoption, and number two, just protecting your stuff. So good on Google for doing that. And then the last part on that is inside of Gemini, the app, gemini.google.com, is gems. I found gems to be super helpful. If you're not familiar with them, they're similar to GPTs, what the hell are they calling them over there? GPTs, I think, actually, where you essentially train it on what you're doing. You're saying, I am, so-and-so, I'm an IT consultant that does X, Y, and Z, and this is what I work on. And this is the way that I want you to synthesize the information that I give you. If you're not using Notebook LM, for example, you can sort of train Gemini to do that for you. And then I use it for some of my scripts, for example, to summarize everything, or polish things up, things like that. And it takes the information that I put into the gem and runs it through all of that data and makes sure that it is keeping to the style and the information that I've given it. So I think that's going to be a really big thing going forward, especially as we get closer to having Gemini everywhere and training these things to be more of our assistants. They have to start remembering and having contextual awareness about us and how we work and our workflows and so on. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I use Gem all the time too. Drafting social posts is one of the things that I use it for. I've got a document of past successful social posts that I refer it to and say basically use this document containing past successful social posts as inspiration for the future posts that you help me create.
Nice.
I've trained it to do all the things like use emojis instead of boring old bullets in my bulleted lists, and use Canadian spelling because that's important to me. And all those, various tweaks that, make my social posts mine,
You,
right?
right.
And so therefore I don't have to spend 30 minutes crafting each post. So I'll spend, 4 or 5 minutes fine tuning something that Gemini creates. But yeah, super useful. It's like, my little, task handler, right? And I've got gems for a couple different things. So definitely something that I use and benefit from, and that generally users are pretty excited about and happy with. Now, it would be nice to be able to bring gems and use them in the side panel, but maybe we'll get there someday. Notebook LM, yeah, tons of hype. Notebook LM Plus, which was recently announced, I think is still rolling out to Google Workspace users. I'm a Gemini Enterprise subscriber, but I don't have it yet. But yeah, looking forward to being able to attach a lot more sources.
But you don't have that 300 limit yet?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know when. I haven't seen it in the recap post as being, how they list everything that
Completed
is
completed
completed.
rollouts. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it. Oh no, it is in there in the list of
Aha.
completed now.
So
So
where's
maybe
yours?
I have it, and maybe I just need to try and load up some sources. I was looking for a visual
Yeah.
indication that I had the plus. But anyway, so I'll check that out later. But I really hope that they'll add more types of sources, like RRS feeds is one of them. I was talking to you about Google Sheets as well.
Yeah, that's
Right
coming.
now it supports slides and docs. But it's got a lot of promise, this Notebook LM thing. I don't know. It's kind of in that experimental phase with Google, so it makes me a little bit nervous. I don't know exactly where it's going to end up. Is it going to be a Google Workspace product? I think it kind of seems like it is with this Plus announcement.
For sure.
But where does it kind of fit in permanently is kind of the question mark that is still yet to be answered. It makes me a little bit nervous, but I think that this one has so much traction that I've got a lot of confidence that it will not only continue to develop and be an excellent addition to the Google Workspace ecosystem. But yeah, I think it's here to stay. Just don't know how and in what form. But it's got a lot of momentum, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. All right. That's Gemini. We still have like 15 other things to go through, and we're half an hour in. So let's move along to
Well, in all
docs.
fairness, it was like half of the updates last year.
That's fair. That's fair. Makes sense that it would be half the show.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about docs. So Google Docs is so Google Docs is just totally transformed with this new tabs feature, right? So we've had tabs on our Google Sheets forever, but now we have tabs on Google Docs, which really kind of it totally embraces this pageless world that we live in now. Like I have Google Docs set to pageless mode. I've had it set to pageless mode ever since the day pageless mode came out, because I don't print documents anymore. I just simply don't. So tabs, what it does is it allows you a lot more flexibility in how you categorize those pageless documents, rather than just having one long pageless document that you scroll forever and ever with headings and things like that. Yes. But now you can tab them into different categories, right? And so it really opens a lot of doors in terms of how you can structure your documents and make them a lot more easy to navigate, quite frankly. So really big fan of this tab documents. Have you been using that?
Yeah, on and off, and it's been a huge change, like you said, to how documents are set up. You can link directly to individual tabs and move through information and hide information, just organize everything so much cleaner than ever before. And it's kind of a reinvention of how documents work. So it's about time.
Yeah, it's you imagine like let's say, a standard operating procedure document, which can be very lengthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And expecting
Handbooks,
a
manuals.
yeah, like why should a user have to scroll and scroll and scroll, and maybe they scroll too fast and they're like, oh, I can't find it. They scroll up, they scroll down, they can't find what they're looking for. But with the tabs, it just makes it so much easier. Totally agree
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, and much better. What do you call it? Like a table of contents or an outline that normally would be on the side. What this takes the place of, but giving you the ability to collapse things and hide them and things like that. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, the document outline still has some value because it enumerates all of your headings
Hmm.
within a tab, right? Like, so you, according to your H1, H2, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 tags,
Right.
it keeps the document organized and allows you to navigate within that. But when documents become very lengthy, that's when HAB just sort of supersedes that and allows you a higher level of organization, I suppose.
Yep.
E-signature, big story.
Tell me.
Well, you know, you don't have to sign up for a DocuSign or
Woohoo!
Sign Now or you know I can't remember Adobe Sign and things like that. And um, you know, having e-signature built right into Google Docs started in Google Docs. Now is available in
And Drive as
Drive
well. Yep.
generally, right? So PDF is kind of like the main alternative format to Google Docs that you might request an e-signature on. And in
Hmm.
fact, when you request an e-signature on Google Docs, it just turns it into a PDF anyways, because of course, we don't need that document to be editable at that point that you're signing it. But it's super powerful because it just makes it so easy for anybody to be able to request a signature on a document, even users that don't do it all day long every day. And so therefore may not be subscribed to one of those third-party services, right?
Hmm.
Like if somebody requests a signature on a document, it doesn't make sense to pay for an annual subscription to Adobe Sign for them if they just need to do this once in a while. Or
Hmm.
perhaps they don't need, a bazillion fancy schmancy features, right?
Right.
If they just have very basic requirements and they just need to request signatures on documents from time to time, it's built right into Google Workspace and it works like a charm.
Yeah, super helpful. I actually haven't used it. I have a Sign Now license, but as soon as that expires, I'm definitely going to be transitioning everything over to. I mean, I don't send a lot of documents for signing, to be honest, but when I do, like you said, you need a handful of them a month or whatever. Um, it's definitely much better to have it inside my workspace workflow.
Yep. Yep, totally agree. I'm using Google Docs e-signature for all of our agreements.
Hmm.
I've used it for employee agreements. I've used it for non-disclosure agreements. I've used it for sales
Nice.
proposals. Um, Works super well, and quite often clients will come back to me and say, "How did you do that?" Right? Like I
It's
have to use
a good
this.
training opportunity.
Yeah, I have to use this uh, DocuSign where I have to like export my Google Doc and then upload it to DocuSign and hope that it imports correctly. And if it doesn't, then I have to redo that import process. And then I send it for signing. And then when I'm done, I have to download it and then add it to my Google Drive afterwards. And what by sending it directly from a Google Doc, I would love to be able to do that. So of course we teach them how to do it. But this is one of those things that people don't want the complexity that comes along with those third-party tools, right? It's like
Right.
back when Google Calendar introduced the ability to create booking links, appointment schedules, they
Hmm.
call it. And they're like, hey, I can do that directly in Google Calendar now. Why am I paying for this Calendly thing?
Yep.
And, signing in there and giving some other company my data and my money. Just teach me how to bake it right into Google Calendar. And Google Docs did the same thing with eSignatures. So
For sure.
very happy guy.
Awesome. I agree with both of yours, and that's all I have on docs. So we can move on to sheets.
Cool. Let me see here. Google Sheets. Well, there's two features that stole the show for Google Sheets this year, and that is Tables,
Hmm.
which does a really good job of helping you to bring structure and consistent formatting to large sets of data, particularly if you're using it for lists or processes or project plans and things like that. Google Sheets tables just makes it so easy to structure that data and keep it consistent over time. And so Google Sheets tables, number one. And then number two is conditional notifications, where you can say, hey, if the data in column C, which could be the person who that task in a project plan is assigned to, if the value in column C changes, then notify the new the email address of the new value, right? So if we have a project plan and I'm responsible for the item on row 3, and in column C it's assigned to Christian and that changes to Jesse, then you'll get a notification, right? So that's what conditional notifications does, is it notifies you not on every change that happens to the sheet, but based on the rules that you specify. And it notifies the people that you specify. And it just takes, combined with tables, these conditional notifications take Google Sheet collaboration in Google Sheets just to a whole new level. And users are loving it. I am loving it. And I just wish it happened a long time ago.
Yeah, amazing. Agree.
Yeah. What have you got? Have you got anything for Sheets?
I do. I have the Gemini side of things, Generative Tables. I have been using Gemini on the sidebar to get me started, to ramp me up on I'm creating a report to, send to my client about performance of X, Y, and Z, or how they're, how much of their workspace licensing they're allocated or using, or whatever it is. I just go into Gemini and say, this is what I'm doing. Get me started. And it pumps it in and, gives me the columns and the rows and sample data. The only thing it doesn't do that I really want it to do is it, like in the totals column, it will do the math to tabulate the totals, but it doesn't put in the formula to do that for me. So I start changing the numbers and that number doesn't change. So that I have to put in the formula. So it's
I didn't notice that.
So close, Google. So close.
Yeah. This needs to be a formula, Gemini.
Which I could probably select the cell and then engage Gemini and be like, write the formula for this. But at that point, it's so easy to just equals sum, etc. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah, if it's a matter of a sum, you can do that, I guess.
Yeah,
but Gemini's side panel though is great at helping me craft formulas that with functions that I'm not as familiar with. So I've definitely used it for that. But yeah, these generative tables, I assume you're using Help Me Organize in order to generate that. It's great because when I'm creating a new sheet, whether it's a project plan or an event schedule or a training plan or whatever, kind of half the battle is like, okay, well, what columns do I need? And how I'm going to format those. Like, it takes a lot of time, right?
And thought. And it's like, I don't have to dedicate brain power to that now. It's just done.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it takes me from this blank sheet to like something that I can work with in a matter of seconds rather than, me having to create it from scratch and then probably change my mind 8 different times before I actually end up with, the right columns formatted in the right way. Right. So, love it.
Awesome. Let's move on to chat.
Okay.
One of my favorite and most used products of the Workspace suite.
I love chat. I use it all the time. There's a couple of things that really, really need to be fixed with it. But it's been pretty impressive to watch the pace of update that Google has made over the past, I would say 2 years. They've been kind of on fire with chat updates. And remember, you and I went to Google Cloud Next and you recorded that session. One of the few that weren't recorded. That was talking about all of the new chat features that they had planned for 2024. And it was a huge, huge list. And they've delivered on, I think, almost all of them already. I haven't gone back and cross-referenced that list for a little while. But there's just been so many things added to chat. A couple of things that I have on my list is the ability to organize your DMs and your spaces into custom categories. over on the left hand in the navigation panel on the
Game
left.
changer. Game changer. Love it.
Totally, right? Like rather than just having DMs and spaces and reverse chronological within each of those categories, being able to create custom categories for, like, I've got one for active projects, I've got one for open deals, I've got one for all sorts of different things for clients, etc. And being able to organize those in a way that makes sense for me is something that I love, and a lot of users have been asking for that. So I'm thrilled to see that. I'm also thrilled to see how they're improving, emphasis on the ing, the experience with the threaded replies, right? So if we recall, threaded replies were brought to spaces, not to DMs yet, maybe someday, who knows? But to spaces, they brought threaded replies, whereby you can keep your conversations better organized and on topic, right? But the problem was that not everybody used them correctly, right? Because it wasn't as intuitive. And they're making a lot of improvements for that. Things from changing the icons to making the threaded replies more prominent and so forth. And I'm all game for it, because the easier we can make it for people to use threaded replies and keep those conversations organized, the better the experience will be for everybody.
Yep.
So I'm really happy to see that.
Absolutely. The title of that session was Google Chat Team Collaboration, and I do have that recording up on my YouTube channel. If you're among the very select few who want to go back and watch that, you can just search for that on my channel. I am the only one in the world who has this recording, because even the Googlers in the room came up to me afterwards and said, hey, could you share that with us? Because nobody recorded it. So, it helps to bring a camera to Next and just have it running all the time, I suppose. So that's on the channel. I've had it up for a little while here, and 75 people have watched it. So it's not a lot of people, but if there is interest, there are, a few nerds, super nerds like us that go through these with a fine tooth comb. You can definitely go and see that there. My updates, in addition to yours, I definitely agree with those. Split screen in chat has been huge. So the home screen, the home view, the ability to just have the different tiles there so that I have the organization of my different chats, and then my unread or my, ongoing threads or whatever, shows up, conversations is the word I'm looking for there. And then having it open and being able to edit directly in the home screen without leaving the home screen is just so great for my productivity. And people are like, oh, but you can't necessarily focus on, with the thing that you're replying to. It's like, yes, I can. In fact, it's much better for me to not have that extra reload moment so that I can just start writing right away and then jump into something else. And so much easier to multitask through conversations, which I do on the regular. So I'm looking over to my side here because I have another monitor and chat is open on it always. Chat is just always open in the PWA. It's never closed. I refresh it every once in a while to make sure that I have all the new feature updates that come through. But I have that, and then I have the sidebar. I have my calendar open, so it's a perfect place for it. And sometimes Gemini creeps in there as well. So the custom sections has been a total game changer for me. I absolutely love it. Home view and split screen. And then also something that I've been testing lately is the drive in chat, where if you are getting notifications for documents, whether it's access request or somebody made a comment, or made a change on it and they're asking for approval, or something to that effect, it shows up here as a chat. My only real complaint here is that it also sends me an email saying that has occurred, and it's like, for the love of God, let me choose. Like, I want to unsubscribe from emails because I see them in my chat always, instead of having the double now notifications that are showing up in both my email and in Drive. But other than that, it's been great, and I'm a big fan.
So you can turn off those email notifications in the Drive settings. So if you go to Google Drive, go to settings and then notifications.
When did that happen?
It's been a while, Jesse.
Well, when I first started playing with this, that was not the option.
So yeah, you can choose to enable chat in app, in other words, in your browser, or
so I have that
email
off.
Notification.
I have updates in the browser off. It comes in chat.
Yeah,
though,
so do I.
even though that's off. I am going to turn off updates about Google Drive items via email. We'll see if that changes the chat app. We'll have to test that.
It won't. It won't. You'll still get them in chat.
Okay. All right.
I'm kind of on the other side of the fence
Game
of this,
changer.
though, Jesse, because the problem that I have with the Drive notifications in chat is that it's one stream of updates, right?
Yeah.
So,
If you
like,
get a lot of them, you're screwed.
if you get a lot of them, you're screwed. And also, I can't tell which, like, it's harder for me to tell which ones I've kind of dealt with and which ones are associated with others versus in Gmail, it will come in a consistent thread. So if you comment or if you request access to a document and then I give you access and then subsequently you comment on that document or something like that, it'll keep it organized in the same conversation in Gmail. And it's also a dynamic email, so it's all updated in real time, right? Whereas in chat, it's kind of this one thread where all of the different such requests or comments or whatever are mixed together, regardless of what document or topic it is. So that's where I like the dynamic email. I keep the chat notifications off, but you're not the only one who's a fan of the chat notifications.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Drive as a category here, I have it in my list and you don't. So I'm going to jump over to Drive now before we move on to Meet and give a shout out to dark mode. That's my favorite feature of the year in Google Drive. Thank you for that. In addition to that is something that many admins have been begging Google to do for a long time is redesign the video interface when you upload a video to Google Drive and click on it to play it. It is now much easier to play it. And Christian, as you were mentioning before we started the show, they, or maybe it was early on the show, they now have the ability to instant play a video that, you don't have to wait a massive amount of time for it to render. And it's like, just apply the YouTube infrastructure to the Google Drive videos, please. That would be great. Thank you. And that seems to be what they've done. So big fan.
Yeah, video in Google Drive is like, if we go back 3 years and compare it to what the experience was back then to what it is now, it's like, it's totally different. And, other things that they added this year, which are amazing, are things like being able to right click on a video file and generate the caption for it.
Yep.
It's really, really good. I'd love to see chapters, right? Particularly, not only adding the ability to add chapters to videos in Google Drive, but also automatically adding the chapters to meeting recordings that are added to Google Drive, so that if you're looking at the meeting notes document and you see that Jesse and Christian talked about this super interesting and important thing at 42 minutes and 11 seconds into the video, why can't I click a link there and skip right to that chapter?
Yeah, no, I feel like if they apply the YouTube
right?
Live interface to meeting notes recordings and incorporated all of that, that would be epic.
Exactly, right? And I think that's the direction that they're going in, right? Like I see that, these are not, they're continuing to improve this experience, right? And I think that that's the end that they're aiming for. But I don't know. What do I know? I guess. But I sense a pattern here, and I'm a big I'm a big fan of the direction that this pattern is pointing us in.
Same. All right, we have talked a little bit about this and possibly one of the most updated and Gemini enhanced areas. Let's talk about Meet.
Yeah. So, well, it was kind of a nice segue from what I was just talking about, actually. But yeah, so on Google Meet, like, take notes for me is just transformational. Not only did they free me from the responsibility of taking notes, yes, I checked them over to make sure nothing important was missed and things like that. And once in a while, I'll make a slight correction or addition to the meeting notes that Gemini has taken. But it's just changed my meeting workflow so much. And they've consolidated the artifacts, right? So I don't need to get a different email from Google about the transcript versus the video versus the attendance report versus the meeting notes, et cetera, et cetera. I just get one email as the meeting organizer, assuming I'm the organizer, after the meeting saying, hey, here's all your stuff, right? Here's all the artifacts from this meeting. And then I can share them or move them to whatever folder I want. Please, Gemini, automatically move them to folders for me someday. But
seriously,
it's just so much easier because I can deal with them all at once and get notified of them all at once. And it will automatically attach those artifacts to the meeting notes document. So it takes a link to the transcript and puts in a little smart chip in the meeting notes documents to say, here's the transcript or here's the attendance report or whatever. So really that experience has just come together so well that it's just, like I said, it's totally changed my my workflow as the meeting organizer. So big fan of that.
Agreed, 100%. All right, what else do we have in Meet? Take notes from me. Yeah, I 100% agree. Total game changer. Annotations. It's about freaking time. Zoom has had it forever. I've been begging them to do it forever. Apparently, they finally realized, hey, it's time, and the ability to mark up and to collaborate on something while you're meeting on something. Yeah, what took them so long? That's all I'm going to say on that.
I use it all the time. I love it.
Because it's amazing.
Whether I'm
and it should have been there forever.
Co-annotating with somebody or something like that. I use it all the time when I'm doing training. I use it all the time when I'm doing sales presentations. It works beautifully.
Yeah, no, it's epic. I've also been using a lot the seamlessly transfer between devices because I've been driving my baby twins to preschool every day. They're about to start taking the bus, so that's going to stop. But I've had times where I've joined a bunch of meetings because LA traffic is abysmal. And sometimes you get stuck in the car longer than scheduled. And so therefore you have to take things from the road. And then coming back to my desk and sitting down and just saying, hey, transition to over here. And especially with the AirPods on the Apple environment, because it just switches from one device to the other, it has been nearly seamless. It has been really fantastic. So big fan of what they did there. And then something else that I discovered going on the road more is the picture-in-picture in Google Meet, which when you're working with an enormous amount of screen real estate, which is how I prefer to work and generally do, that's not really a problem because I have the Meet over here, and I have my document over here, and I have a web page over here, and I have my email over there, and I have chat over there, and I can see it all at the same time. And if I run out of space, I'll just move it over there. Or I have another screen because my laptop that's powering it all is open, and I could use that smaller screen if I wanted to. Working off of a single screen or a double screen on a laptop or a laptop with a screen attached to it, all of a sudden there's a lot less space for all of that to go, and being able to just instantly have the meeting pop out. That was, you talk about customer delight in user experiences. I was delighted when that first occurred. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. That is so helpful, and it's about time. And it was just a game changer for me. So big shout out to that. And then also redesigned meeting controls is one of my favorites as well. And I think this is fully rolled out to everybody. So just much cleaner, much easier, much faster access to making changes and stuff in Google Meet. So definitely was a year of polish for a lot of the things that they were rolling out this year.
Yeah, all of these are great. I use all of these very frequently. Picture in picture. Yeah, we could do picture in picture before, but it didn't happen automatically.
It wasn't this seamless.
No, it wasn't seamless. And so then you'd switch to a different tab or a different window, and it's like, wait a minute, where did my meeting go? I need to unmute myself because I have something important to say. And it just causes friction in the user experience, whereas right now it just happens, right? You switch back to the meeting tab and the picture in picture goes away, right? Like it just works so well.
So that's what I got from Meet. Those are a bunch of big ones.
Let's talk about I have one more on forms.
You have forms. I don't have anything on forms. I don't use forms very often.
So it's not very often that I get to talk about big updates for forms, but
that's true.
This new responder role is a really, really big deal because before, when you created a Google form, you had a very binary choice, right? Like you could make the form available to everybody on the planet, Anybody
Mhm.
could fill in the form as long as they had access to the link or somebody sent them the link. Anybody on the planet could fill in your form. The
Mhm.
only other alternative was to make it available to everybody within your organization, right? So the question is, well, what if I only want some people in my organization to be able to access it and fill in the form? Or what if
Right.
I only want some people who are outside my organization? Or God forbid, what if I want some people from my organization and some people from external or to be able to fill in my, well, it wasn't possible before. But now with this responder role, you can take any user or any group, whether it contains people internal or external to your organization, and you can basically make them the responder of that form, just like you would make them a viewer of a Google Doc, right?
Right.
And so anybody on that list can fill in your form, and anybody who's not can't, right? And
Mhm.
so it just adds so much more flexibility and control over who can respond to your form that just wasn't available before.
Right.
So I love this update. I've used it. I've shared it with users who came to me with requests like, how do I put a password on a form? Because I want
Mhm.
to share it externally, but I only want some people to be able to actually fill it in. Well, you don't need that anymore with it wasn't possible before anyways. But
Right.
now with the responder role, you have that control that you're looking for.
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan of that. Uh, let's
Awesome.
talk about some admin functionality,
We are
right?
admins.
Yeah, we are admins, and nothing happens without admins. So
Damn straight.
yeah, and so now, not only do we have a brand new two-step verification experience, well, I guess that's kind of for end users, but admins are in control of it, and admins
Right.
are responsible for protecting the Google Workspace data. And so one of the things that admins ask users to do is to enable two-step verification so that if somebody socially engineers their password or phishes their password or something like that, their account will continue to be protected, right?
Yep.
And two-step verification has a brand new enrollment experience, which makes it so much easier for users to enable two-step verification in the first place and enable it with alternative. Well, I shouldn't say alternative because these should actually be the go-to
Default.
methods, the
Yeah.
default methods of two-step verification, but with more secure methods, like using a passkey or a security key or an authenticator code or something like that, rather than text message verification codes, which are horribly insecure
Yeah.
and very, very easy to socially engineer and things like that. And so it makes it a lot easier for users to select those more secure methods and turn on two-step verification using those more secure methods rather than less secure methods like the text verification codes. That's number
Right.
one. New experience and promotes more secure methods. Number two is that two-step verification is required by admins. Now, this hasn't hit every single domain out there yet. I think there's still some that Google's rolling this out to. But if
It's
you're an
coming.
admin, you are going to be required to enroll in two-step verification.
Mhm.
These are the most sensitive accounts out there, right? Because they
Yep.
have the keys to the castle. I think that's how it's said, right?
Keys to the kingdom.
Keys to the kingdom, yeah. And so if you're an admin, you need two-step verification. That's the end of the
For sure.
story, right? And now Google's going to be forcing you to enroll in two-step verification, which I think is a very smart decision for your own protection, right?
100%.
And then the last thing is multi-party approvals. And this is not directly related to two-step verification, but Google rolled out something called multi-party approvals, where if a domain has multiple super admins, then there are certain actions, including the enforcement or non-enforcement of two-step verification, that if they're changed by one admin, another admin needs to approve it before it actually takes effect, right? So
Right.
you can turn on this multi-party approval capability in order to protect certain more sensitive actions and put a little bit more governance behind them. so that if one of your super admin accounts get compromised, or if one of your super admins makes a mistake and turns on or off something that, shouldn't necessarily be turned on or off, there's another admin that needs to approve it before it actually takes effect. So I'm really big fan of that multi-party approvals.
It's the nuclear launch method. You need two keys, and they both need to be there and turned on in order to do the thing.
Yeah. So I'm really happy to see all of those changes. Now, multi-party approvals, though, turning on or off multi-party approvals needs to be one of those sensitive actions. So Google, if you're listening, please do that, because that to me is kind of a sensitive action that needs to have the approval of another admin. That's you don't want to be able to have a super admin that can simply turn off multi-party approvals and then go do one of those sensitive things. So somehow that needs to be solved for, but I'm sure that Google's aware of that, and we'll get to that in a subsequent release.
Yep, definitely. All right, my two that I have here, 2 and 2.5. One is space management. This is back in March, but is a much better interface for managing spaces. Now, in general, spaces tend to be managed by the teams that run them, and if they're sharing things, they're adding people, fine. But every once in a while, you need to do some serious, turning of gears and stuff in order to properly get a space, up and running and humming along and whatnot. And this made it so much easier to be able to go in there and bulk add and bulk change and stuff like that. So definitely appreciated that. And then this is huge: workspace to workspace migration for emails, or IMAP to workspace migration. Before, you had to use external tools, and it was incredibly difficult and a royal pain to do it, or you had to pay Google a tremendous amount of money to access their other migration tool that they've had for much larger orgs and much larger migrations. Here, you're able to just go in there, hook up your old email, and just bring it over, easy peasy. And so I think that's been something that a lot of admins have been begging Google for a long time, and I'm so glad that they finally built it. And then my 0.5, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, to migrate emails between users or even between Google Workspace accounts was a real pain in the butt before. I think you mentioned you had to enable IMAP, which generally speaking, you don't want to have enabled. And you had to authenticate, separately all of those users. Now it's just so simple. As long as you have an admin account on both Google Workspace domains, it's just so easy to migrate emails. Please someday help us do this for Drive files, Google.
Yes.
We know that you can do it. Let's just make it available in the admin console, even if there's size limitations or user limitations to begin with. We need to be able to see that sort of capability. And then there's all the other things like contacts and calendars and chats and things like that. But I'm very confident starting with emails in the direction that they're heading in here. And so just hope to see more expansion of those capabilities.
Yep. And then my 0.5 is a 0.5 because it hasn't really been fully released yet, but it was announced, the bringing of Gemini and AI capabilities to the admin panel, to the point where it's going to be able to make suggestions of new features or things that you should update, settings that you should change. And then with one click, you can just make it happen. You can just have Gemini do it for you. And I think that, every admin who manages Google Workspace is overworked and doesn't have a lot of time to go digging for settings, and having a natural language speech search, as well as the ability for it to just pop these things up for you, is just going to make our lives so much easier. And I'm a big fan of things that make our lives easier. So looking forward to that one. A little bit of a future
about something like the side panel, the Gemini side panel in the admin console, or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or help me create a user. Help me onboard a user.
Yeah. Google. Do all of the steps I would normally do. Follow my process. Do it for me.
Yeah, totally. Nice. Yeah, love it. Okay.
All right.
What else we got here?
You have one last one, and then I have a couple of ones that you didn't.
Yeah, for admin. Yeah, so data classification. So we started with file classification labels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we could label the sensitivity of files, is it confidential or public or internal or whatever. But we could also add standardized metadata to certain types of files. Like if you imagine I have digital assets spread across all my drives, or I have sales proposals spread across all my drives,
Mm-hmm.
um, I could add standardized metadata to those files for what is the value of these proposals, or what type of digital asset is it? Is it a video, or is it an icon, or is it a photo, or whatever? So we started with those file classification, but now it's becoming a lot more flexible, where we have now called data classification, and we can apply classification labels to emails now, right? It's in beta still, but we can apply data classification, because guess what? Emails could be sensitive in nature too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's only the file sensitivity, or sorry, the data sensitivity that we have right now. But maybe someday we'll be able to add standardized metadata to emails, and maybe someday chats, or maybe someday calendar events, or something like that. Who knows where Google's going with this, but by generalizing it from just file classifications to data classification, which for now encompasses email and maybe more things in the future, I think that we're adding a whole new level of file organization and control, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Or I said file, didn't I? Data
Data.
class organization and control that previously didn't exist. And I'd love to see where this is all headed. So
Yeah,
really excited
definitely.
about that.
So my last ones here is an honorable mention to Vids, the first new fully fledged actual app to Google Workspace in forever. I don't use it all that much, but I have heard that there are folks that are using it, and less technical folks out there, especially for business updates and things like that, that are using it, and appreciate having a simplified video creation and editing experience. So shout out there. And then I've been deep diving into Chrome OS, because I've got a whole bunch of videos coming out on Chrome OS starting today and into the next couple of weeks. And as you can see behind me, I've been playing with some of the new Chromebooks that are out there. And Chrome OS they have been shipping this year. It has come a long way. I have not daily driven it in a while, because I've got my optimized setup for video editing here. So it's a crazy powerful MacBook Pro. And I'm not sure that I can do all of what I do on a Chromebook. I certainly can't run Final Cut Pro on it, or DaVinci Resolve, which I'm working on switching to. But it's gotten so much more refined. And they have something that they've recently announced that is a new action button. So previously you had what would be in the space of the caps lock is the launcher, and that would bring up your start menu kind of a interface. And now the action button, which first is showing up on the new Samsung Galaxy Plus that was just announced or just released, and hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll have a review unit so I can make a video on that. But what happens is when you hit that action button, which is the same caps lock, or you could, of course, map it to a different key if you wanted to, you are able to just start typing what you want to happen. And so it's like, okay, I want to open one of my documents. You just start typing the name of the document, you hit enter, and it shows up, and you hit enter, and it'll open it for you. Or you want to ask Gemini something, you just ask Gemini right there. In that action window, or you want to start a new document, you can follow the interface to start a new document or open an app. All of that is really fast and really simple and straightforward and easy to use in that interface. So I was blown away by that, and I wanted to put that in here as a it's not 100% workspace, but all workspace companies should definitely be using Chrome OS in one way or another. Maybe not for everybody, but definitely for good portions of the workforce. And it deserves, if not a first look, if you've never seen it before, definitely a first look, but also a second, third, fourth, and fifth look. It's gotten that good that it is really solid as an operating system, and I'm back to being a big fan of it. So well done to the Chrome OS team on that. And I think we should probably wrap there, because this has been over an hour. We had some forward-thinking stuff, but maybe we'll save those for another day here, because this has gone on for quite a while. So thanks all for joining us and for watching. Let us know what your favorite workspace updates of 2024 were in the comments. I read every single one, and anything that you tag Christian in, I will make sure that he sees as well, and always online and monitoring. So thanks for a great year, and looking forward to Google Next. Go register for that if you haven't. And once again, as always, thank you, Christian, for being a great regular guest on the show.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And it's been a fun year. Super looking forward to 2025. Can't wait to see you again at
Woohoo.
Google Cloud Next.
Yep.
For those of you listening, Jesse and I finally met at Next 2024. We will meet again at Next 2025. If you're listening or watching and we haven't met, tag us. We'd love to see you there.
Yep.
And we can't wait to talk with you about all things Google Workspace in 2025. Oh, and if you're not following me on LinkedIn, definitely look me up, Christian Newman. You can find me there. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And yeah, thanks everybody for watching.
All right. See you next time.